For weeks or even months, you've been receiving subtle signals of quantum intuition, those instantaneous knowings that arise without explanation, those impulses to take specific actions that seem irrational and illogical, the feelings you have about people or situations that contradict surface-level evidence. These are the urges to go to certain places or make decisions that don't make sense according to rational planning or the logical framework that has been ingrained in you over time. Yet, for the most part, you have ignored these signals because they don't align with your practical, logical thinking. They don't fit the neatly organized world you've built through reason, and your rational mind has been conditioned to dismiss these intuitive nudges as unreliable, as wishful thinking at best, or as meaningless mental noise at worst. However, quantum intuition is not just a random series of hunches, gut feelings, or emotional impulses. These are, in fact, direct communications from the quantum field, arriving in your consciousness before the physical circumstances materialize. It's guidance from your higher dimensional self, the part of you that can perceive the subtle probability waves of reality before they collapse into physical form. It's navigation data, revealing the optimal paths that logic alone cannot discern. Quantum intuition doesn't operate in the realm of linear thinking or rational calculation. It works in dimensions where outcomes are visible before they manifest in the physical world, allowing it to provide you with more precise and accurate guidance than your rational mind could ever calculate. When you ignore these intuitive signals, you are dismissing one of the most sophisticated guidance systems available to you. You are neglecting the very channel that connects you to the underlying intelligence of the universe. Quantum intuition offers you access to information that is far more advanced than what your mind can grasp through logical deduction. It's the most advanced form of information available to you in the present moment, yet so often drowned out by the mental noise of your daily thoughts. You may be wondering how to distinguish between quantum intuition and the mental noise that often fills your mind. The difference is profound. Quantum intuition arrives fully formed, immediate, and certain. It's not something you need to reason through or analyze. It's an inner knowing, a feeling of recognition, rather than something you figure out step by step. You just know without knowing how you know. There's no question, no doubt, it simply is. This is very different from mental noise, which tends to argue, present multiple options, and make you feel uncertain. Mental noise is the chatter of the mind, always second-guessing, questioning, and doubting. Quantum intuition, on the other hand, bypasses that process entirely, arriving with clarity and certainty. Right now, in this very moment, you are receiving quantum intuition signals, knowings you've been dismissing as mere imagination, impulses you've been suppressing as impractical, and feelings you've been ignoring as irrational. These are not random mental artifacts or misguided whims. They are precisely calibrated pieces of information from the quantum field, guiding you toward the most optimal timeline for your growth and well-being. They are showing you choices that align with your highest trajectory and warning you away from paths that would create complications or delays. The quantum field broadcasts intuition to everyone constantly, but the majority of people are unable to perceive it. This is because their rational mind is so noisy, so filled with analysis, that the subtle signals of intuition get drowned out. The good news is that you've been developing your capacity to receive quantum intuition. Every experience that has quieted your mind, expanded your awareness, and disconnected you from the rigidity of logic-based decision-making has increased your ability to receive these signals. And now, your reception is clear enough that intuition arrives frequently, often in obvious and undeniable forms. However, even though the signals are stronger now, you are still filtering them through your rational mind, trying to verify whether they make sense before acting on them. And this is where the problem lies. Quantum intuition is not meant to be analyzed. It's not something to be logically justified or scrutinized for consistency with your linear thinking. Quantum intuition is about acting on the information you receive before the logic catches up. Because the truth is, logic often misses the mark. Quantum intuition knows things that logic cannot even begin to fathom, because it has access to information from dimensions where multiple timelines and outcomes are visible. This is why quantum intuition is so critical. It doesn't just give you a sense of what's right in the moment, it shows you the optimal moments. the windows of opportunity that only exist for a limited time. The guidance you receive isn't about general advice or vague suggestions, it's about precise timing, about knowing exactly when to act, who to connect with, what choices to make, and where to direct your attention. The field is organizing reality constantly, setting up perfect synchronicities, orchestrating meetings, and opening opportunities. But it can only deliver them if you are following the signals of intuition, if you know when to show up at the right time, reach out to the right person, and take the right action. If you ignore these signals, you miss out on the opportunities the field has arranged for you. The consequences of ignoring quantum intuition are far greater than they may seem. When you rely solely on logic to figure out timing and direction, you risk missing the windows of opportunity that intuition was guiding you toward. By the time your rational mind decides that something is a good idea, the quantum opportunity may have already passed. The field doesn't operate on the same timeline that logic does. It's working with subtle forces and patterns that unfold according to different rules. The optimal outcomes that the field is organizing for you can only be delivered if you follow intuition. Without it, the chances of missing your perfect moment increase exponentially. Let me break down the characteristics of quantum intuition and how you can start following it more consciously. First, quantum intuition doesn't come with a detailed explanation. It doesn't explain why a decision feels right or why something is the best choice. It simply provides the right action to take in the moment, and you feel an undeniable sense that it is the right thing to do. When you start following these impulses consistently, reality begins to change. You'll notice that synchronicities multiply, that opportunities start aligning in ways that are almost magical. Your life will start to unfold in a way that makes logical sense only after you follow intuition. The more you trust it, the more reliable it becomes, because it is guiding you toward the optimal timeline for your soul's journey. At first, following quantum intuition might feel like a leap of faith, especially if it contradicts logical thinking. You may wonder if you're just making things up or being impulsive, but over time, you will begin to notice the results of trusting it. You will see how things unfold effortlessly once you've followed those inner nudges. The opposite is also true. When you ignore those intuitive impulses, you'll notice that things tend to fall apart, or you'll find yourself faced with delays and complications. There are numerous examples in your life where you've experienced the power of quantum intuition. Perhaps you had an intuitive feeling to contact someone, and when you did, they said, "I was just thinking about you," or had exactly what you needed. This wasn't coincidence, it was the quantum field showing you how entangled your consciousness is with others. Your intuition detected the optimal timing for connection, and when you acted on it, the result was meaningful. Another common phenomenon is having a strong feeling that something is about to happen moments before it does. Perhaps you've experienced knowing that the phone is about to ring, or that a person is about to arrive, or maybe you sensed news before it was delivered. This is your quantum intuition perceiving the potential outcomes before they manifest physically. Your consciousness is operating at a frequency where it can detect the probability waves of future events, giving you previews of what's to come. And then there are those times when you followed an illogical impulse, taking a different route or speaking to a stranger, and found yourself in exactly the right place at the right time. These moments of serendipity are the result of your intuition guiding you towards something your conscious mind couldn't have planned. The action you took wasn't based on logic or prior knowledge, it was a perfect alignment with the quantum field's patterning. You didn't see the full picture in advance, but you trusted the guidance, and the outcome was exactly what you needed. There have also been times when you ignored a strong intuitive impulse and later discovered that following it would have prevented a problem or led to an opportunity you missed. For example, you may have felt a strong urge to leave a place early but stayed, only to encounter delays or an unfortunate situation. Or perhaps you felt drawn to attend an event but decided it wasn't practical, only to later realize that it was the exact place you needed to be to make an important connection. These examples are not coincidences. They are proof that quantum intuition is reliable and accurate. Every time you ignored it, you were shown the cost of doing so. The key lesson is learning to trust these intuitive signals more and questioning your rational mind's need for justification. Your body also plays a key role in quantum intuition. Often, the intuitive guidance you receive comes with physical sensations, such as a feeling in your gut, heart, or solar plexus. These sensations are energetic responses to truth or warning. They are not emotions, but physical signs of energetic knowing, expansion or contraction, warmth or cold, openness or closedness. Learning to read these somatic signals is essential for navigating quantum intuition accurately. Your body is receiving quantum information before your mind has even processed it consciously. Dreams are another major channel for quantum intuition. Your conscious mind's filters are inactive during sleep, which allows direct access to the quantum field. Through dreams, you may have received specific guidance, warnings, or even previews of events. When you followed these dreams, you found them to be accurate. You might have dreamed about someone, and they appeared shortly after, or you might have dreamed about a specific situation unfolding, and it did exactly as you foresaw. Dreams are a powerful tool for quantum intuition because they bypass the filtering mechanisms of the conscious mind. You've also experienced moments when you just knew something about a person you just met, like knowing their character, their situation, or their truth without any logical basis for knowing. These moments of direct knowing are the result of quantum intuition accessing information from the field where all data exists. You've downloaded information about people, situations, or opportunities that your observation alone couldn't provide. Another common experience is timing intuition, knowing the exact right moment to act, even though logic said different timing made more sense. You might have felt drawn to reach out to someone at an odd hour, only to find that they were desperately in need of support at that very moment. Or you might have felt compelled to check your email at a random time and found a time-sensitive opportunity waiting for you. Every time you followed your intuition and it worked out, you were being shown that quantum guidance is reliable. You were training your consciousness to trust direct knowing over rational analysis. Each time you ignored your intuition and encountered problems, you were being shown the cost of dismissing quantum guidance. These are not mere accidents. They are lessons that train you to recognize the limitations of logic alone and the incredible power of quantum intuition. True quantum intuition is always accurate, but its accuracy is not always immediately apparent. It is optimizing for your long-term trajectory, not your short-term preferences. The times when intuition didn't seem to work out were often lessons in trusting the process, or instances where you were guided through necessary experiences, not just specific outcomes. Your entire life has been a journey of quantum intuition guiding you toward the optimal timeline. But the rational mind's resistance has created detours, delays, and complications. Not because intuition was wrong, but because you kept overriding it with logic that couldn't see what intuition could see. Every difficult period you've encountered was, in reality, a learning process, one in which you were gradually discovering that relying solely on logic to navigate life is insufficient. These experiences were all opportunities for you to recognize the limitations of the rational mind and realize that a more expansive, intuitive form of guidance was available to you. The spiritual seeking you've done, even if it didn't always explicitly focus on developing intuition, was, in fact, shaping your capacity to receive intuitive signals. Whether you were meditating to quiet the mind, practicing mindfulness to increase awareness, or engaging in energy work to hone your sensitivity to subtle energy, all of these practices were refining your ability to tune into quantum guidance. Meditation helped quiet mental noise, allowing you to hear the subtle signals of intuition. Mindfulness trained you to notice those delicate internal nudges before they were drowned out by overthinking. Energy work attuned you to somatic intuition, the body's ability to sense energetic shifts that contain messages for you. All of these practices were incrementally improving your ability to receive and recognize quantum intuition, even though you may not have been fully aware of it at the time. Interestingly, even your isolation from the consensus reality of logic-based decision-making helped protect your intuition. This isolation allowed your intuition to remain undisturbed by societal programming that teaches you to disregard anything that doesn't fit within the boundaries of rational thought. Had you been fully socialized into the purely rational paradigm, your natural intuitive abilities would likely have been suppressed or eliminated entirely. In fact, your discomfort with relying solely on logic preserved your access to this invaluable resource, even when you didn't consciously value or trust it. Every time you followed logic and it led to problems, you were gathering evidence that logic has its limitations. Every time you ignored your intuitive guidance and later regretted it, you were learning the cost of dismissing quantum intuition. These were not failures. They were experiences that, over time, would build the case for trusting intuition over logic when the two conflict. The times when you felt crazy for having strong intuitive knowings about situations or people you couldn't explain were not delusions. Instead, they were instances where you were accessing quantum information that the consensus reality doesn't acknowledge exists. The feelings of being different or weird for trusting intuition were in fact protective mechanisms that kept you from succumbing to the purely logical mindset that would have ultimately stifled your ability to tune into the quantum field. Your financial struggles, career confusion, relationship complications, all of these difficulties often arose from overriding intuition in favor of practical, logical thinking that seemed safer in the moment, but, in hindsight, led to even greater challenges. Intuition was continuously guiding you toward aligned paths, while logic kept pushing you toward conventional routes that were not the best fit for your unique consciousness. At every point, the quantum field was attempting to guide you, but the over-reliance on logic often prevented you from following the optimal path. As you're reading about quantum intuition right now, you're receiving intuition signals. Can you feel it? This isn't just a thought or an emotion, it's a knowing. A recognition that you have indeed been receiving guidance all along, and yet you've been ignoring it. There's an awareness now that quantum intuition is trying to show you something in this moment. And although you can't see the entire picture yet, you can feel that following this intuition will change everything. The intuition you're receiving right now is not about the content of this video or the information being presented. It's about a specific action you need to take in your own life, a choice you need to make, a person you need to contact, or a situation you need to address. The quantum field is using your engagement with this content to get your attention and deliver guidance that you've been missing because you've been too busy thinking and analyzing to notice the knowing beneath your thoughts. Take a moment now, stop reading, and check in with yourself. What intuitive knowing are you receiving right now? What do you just know you need to do, even though it doesn't make logical sense? What impulse have you been suppressing? What knowing have you been dismissing? That is your quantum intuition, trying to guide you toward the most optimal timeline. The feeling of urgency you may be experiencing right now is not coming from these words on the page. It's coming from the quantum field, communicating to you that the timing window for the opportunity it's trying to deliver is closing. The intuition you're receiving now is time-sensitive, not because the field is pressuring you artificially, but because the opportunities it is showing you exist in specific timing windows. These windows are open for only so long, and the optimal moment for action is now. If you don't act on this guidance now, the opportunity may pass. What I'm about to reveal is the exact mechanism of how quantum intuition works, why it's far more accurate than logic, and how to distinguish true intuition from mental noise. This will allow you to follow guidance with confidence, rather than second-guessing every impulse. But before we dive into that, there's a crucial decision you need to make. Will you acknowledge the intuition you're receiving right now and commit to acting on it? Because recognizing intuition intellectually is one thing, but continuing to ignore it practically will change nothing. The true power of quantum intuition lies in your willingness to act on it, even when it contradicts logic. 3 years ago, I experienced a profound moment of intuition that led me to quit a stable job and move to a new city where I knew no one. I had no job lined up, no rational reason to go. But the intuition I felt was so clear and certain that it felt like remembering something I had already decided, rather than considering a new option. Logic said, stay secure job, routine, comfortable life. Intuition said, go. I spent 3 weeks in internal conflict, debating whether to trust the intuitive knowing or to listen to the rational mind. Ultimately, I decided to trust the intuition, and I gave notice, sold everything, and moved. For the first month, I thought I had made a huge mistake. No job appeared. Money was depleting. The isolation was intense. Doubt was overwhelming. Logic screamed, I told you so. Yet, my intuition remained quietly certain. Then, in the second month, everything aligned. A job appeared that was a perfect match for skills I hadn't even realized I had. A community formed around interests I had never pursued before. A relationship began with someone I never would have met otherwise. A completely new life configuration manifested, one that was far superior to what I had left behind. The crucial recognition I gained from this experience was that intuition knew what logic could not. Staying in my old life would have kept me away from the right place at the right time, preventing the opportunities that only could have appeared in the new location. The 3 weeks I spent arguing with my intuition almost caused me to miss the timing window. If I had waited another month, trying to logically plan things out, I would have arrived after the optimal convergence moment had passed. About 6 months later, I felt a strong intuitive nudge to contact someone I had met briefly months before. The logical mind resisted. There was no reason to think they would remember me, and we hadn't spoken much. Reaching out seemed random and awkward, but the intuition was insistent. So, I sent the message. They responded immediately, saying, "I've been hoping you'd reach out." Within weeks, we were collaborating on a project that became central to my work for the next 2 years. My intuition knew the connection was significant, even though the surface-level interaction had given no logical indication of it. This pattern became undeniable. Every time I followed my intuition, even when it contradicted logic, circumstances aligned in ways that logic could not have predicted. Every time I ignored intuition and followed the logical approach, I encountered difficulties or missed opportunities. The correlation was consistent, precise, and reproducible. Intuition was clearly accessing information that logic could not. The most profound realization was recognizing that intuition wasn't random or emotional. It was direct knowing from a consciousness operating at a frequency where outcomes are visible before they manifest. It was like seeing around a corner that logic couldn't see around, because logic processes only what's already visible. Intuition accesses the quantum field, where all probabilities exist simultaneously, and shows you which probability to select for the most optimal trajectory. Logic, on the other hand, only processes collapsed. Reality, what's already manifest, what's already visible. This means logic is always operating on outdated information. It can only analyze what has already happened or what's currently happening. Intuition, however, operates on real-time quantum information. It can perceive what's about to happen, what could happen, and which choices will lead to which outcomes before they have materialized physically. When you follow logic, you are making decisions based on past patterns, current circumstances, and the limited information your senses can detect. When you follow intuition, you are making decisions based on quantum information that your consciousness can access at frequencies beyond sensory input. Intuition provides direct knowing about people, situations, timing, and optimal paths that logic has no access to, because the information hasn't yet manifested physically. Following intuition is like seeing the road ahead before you arrive at it, while following logic is like driving while only looking at the rearview mirror. The surprising part is that intuition isn't predicting the future. It is perceiving the quantum field, where multiple futures exist simultaneously as probability waves, and showing you which probability to collapse through your choices and actions. The future is not predetermined. It exists as a superposition of possibilities. Intuition guides you toward collapsing the probability that aligns with your highest trajectory. The challenge, of course, is distinguishing true quantum intuition from mental noise, fear-based impulses, and wishful thinking. True intuition has a specific feeling, quality. It is calm certainty, not anxious urgency. It's clear knowing, not confused hoping. It's recognition, not speculation. Once you learn to identify this quality in your intuition, following it becomes straightforward, even when it contradicts logical reasoning. What I'm sharing with you now is designed to help you develop the same discriminating capacity to recognize true quantum intuition versus mental interference, and to trust guidance even when it doesn't make logical sense. By applying these principles, you can start following your intuition reliably and stop second-guessing every impulse. Quantum intuition isn't mystical or magical. It's the natural function of consciousness when it operates at quantum frequencies. It's about accessing information from the field where past, present, and future exist together. This is the practice for accessing quantum intuition reliably. Stop trying to figure everything out with logic and start noticing what you already know. Intuition doesn't arrive through thinking, it's present as knowing underneath the thoughts. When you face a decision, instead of analyzing logically, drop into your body, quiet your mind, and simply notice, what do you already know? Not what you think or what seems logical, but what do you know directly, without reasoning? That knowing is your quantum intuition. The most revolutionary recognition is this. Quantum intuition is always accurate when it is truly intuition, rather than mental noise. The moments when intuition seems to fail are actually times when what you followed was not true intuition, but fear disguised as intuition, wishful thinking masquerading as knowing, or mental impulses mistaken for guidance. True quantum intuition is clear, calm, certain, and it feels like recognition rather than something based on fear or hope. This distinction is vital to understand. Quantum intuition feels like remembering, while mental noise feels like trying to figure something out. Intuition is instantaneous knowing, whereas thought requires sequential processing and analysis. Intuition is certain even when there is no evidence, while logic requires justification. Intuition feels expansive and open, while mental noise often feels contracted and anxious. Learning to recognize these distinctions is crucial because they enable you to trust intuition over logic, even when logic argues against the intuitive knowing. You may have already experienced this internal tug-of-war between intuition and logic. You feel the pull of intuition guiding you toward a certain decision or action, but your rational mind starts doubting it. Logic may present evidence or reasons to go another route, but if you follow the logical path, things often don't work out as expected. The key is in recognizing that quantum intuition operates at a different frequency, one that transcends the limitations of logic. When you learn to trust and follow intuition, especially when it contradicts logic, you open the door to a completely different experience of life, one where opportunities flow to you effortlessly, and the challenges that once seemed insurmountable begin to dissolve. At this moment, as you read these words, you're receiving quantum intuition signals. Do you feel it? It's not just a thought or an emotion. It's a knowing, a recognition that yes, you have been receiving guidance all along, but have been ignoring it or dismissing it as impractical or illogical. The quantum field is trying to get your attention right now. The impulse you're feeling, the knowing you're receiving, may be about something specific in your life, a particular choice you need to make, a person you need to contact, or a situation you need to address. The field is using this content to awaken your awareness and help you recognize the intuitive guidance you've been missing because your rational mind has been too busy analyzing, thinking, and reasoning. Take a moment right now and check in with yourself. What intuition are you receiving? What do you just know you need to do, even though it doesn't seem to make logical sense? What impulse have you been suppressing? What guidance have you been dismissing? That is your quantum intuition trying to guide you toward the optimal timeline. Your recognition of it right now is the field signaling that this is the moment to acknowledge and act on the guidance you've been ignoring. There is urgency in this moment, not because the field is pressuring you, but because the quantum timing window for the opportunity it's been trying to deliver is closing. Intuition is showing you that this is a time-sensitive opportunity, and if you don't act now, it may pass. Repeated intuition signals are like an alarm clock, designed to wake you up before you miss an important appointment. These repetitive intuitive nudges are not your mind obsessing, they are the quantum field persistently broadcasting guidance, knowing that the window for optimal action is approaching. The field is trying to get your attention before that window closes. Perhaps you've experienced this before, when intuition kept telling you to reach out to someone or make a specific change, and you felt that urge repeatedly. The repetition of the impulse isn't random, it's the field trying to ensure you don't miss the moment. In addition, you've likely noticed that when you follow small intuitive impulses, things tend to align. You take a different route, start a random conversation, check an email at an unusual time, and these seemingly minor actions consistently lead to beneficial synchronicities or help you avoid problems. This is the quantum field demonstrating that intuition is a reliable navigation system. These small confirmations are building your trust in intuition so that when it directs you toward major life changes, decisions that logic would outright reject, you will have the confidence to follow it. This is especially true now, as you are likely experiencing an acceleration in how quickly circumstances confirm or contradict your choices. When you follow intuition, things flow smoothly and doors open easily. Conversely, when you override intuition with logic, you may immediately encounter obstacles and delays. This rapid feedback is the quantum field, making the correlation between following or ignoring intuition and the outcome so obvious that you can't dismiss it as coincidence. The contrast is stark, and it's a clear sign that reality responds differently when you're in alignment with quantum guidance versus when you're in logical planning mode. Another crucial aspect of quantum intuition is the specific sensation that often accompanies it. Many people experience a particular feeling in the body when intuition strikes, maybe a relaxation in the chest when something is aligned, or tension in the gut when something feels off. Perhaps you feel warmth or tingling when intuition points you in the right direction. Your body has developed its own somatic language for quantum guidance. Learning to read these signals is key to following intuition accurately. When you recognize and honor these body signals, you strengthen your ability to navigate life using quantum intuition as your compass. One of the most striking aspects of intuition-led living is how opportunities seem to materialize when you are in the flow of intuition. Following a string of intuitive nudges can create a cascade of synchronicities, where each action leads you to the next perfect circumstance. It's as though reality itself begins to organize around your intuitive guided movements. However, when you stop trusting intuition and return to pure logic, the flow stops and you encounter friction once again. This contrast highlights the stark difference in how reality responds when you're following quantum guidance compared to when you're relying on logical planning. There is urgency in recognizing and following quantum intuition because timing windows are real. Opportunities exist in specific convergence moments, where multiple factors align and the field shows you the optimal timing for action. Intuition can sense these moments before they are logically apparent. By the time logic catches up and calculates that something is a good idea, the timing window may have already closed. You've likely experienced this before, knowing you should have acted on intuition sooner and recognizing in hindsight that the timing you felt was exactly the right timing. You may have also received dream guidance that connects with your waking intuitive knowing. Themes, symbols, and messages in dreams often reinforce or clarify the intuitive guidance you receive while awake. This dual-channel guidance ensures that the message gets through, because the quantum field knows that what it's communicating to you is time-sensitive and crucial for your trajectory. The synchronicities surrounding a specific person, opportunity, or direction may become so frequent that they are impossible to ignore. You keep encountering the same name, the same theme, or the same possibility, but through different, seemingly unconnected channels. This clustering is the quantum field using every available avenue to draw your attention to something that your intuition is already trying to guide you toward. The persistence of these synchronicities is proof that this is not random. The field is orchestrating events to get you to notice and act. At the same time, you might also notice that your old approaches to logical planning no longer work the way they used to. You make careful plans, only to see them fall apart. You analyze situations thoroughly, but still miss crucial factors. Logic leads you to the wrong conclusions because it is not attuned to the quantum frequencies you are now operating at. You've upgraded beyond a logic-only consciousness. Purely rational approaches no longer generate optimal outcomes. Following quantum intuition consistently requires you to align what you know intuitively with what you do practically. You must act on intuitive guidance rather than merely collecting intuitive insights and continuing to live according to logical planning. This is where the misalignment often occurs. You're receiving intuition regularly, but only following it when logic agrees with it. You trust your intuitive knowing intellectually, but when it contradicts practical considerations, you hesitate to act on it. The key to alignment is making intuition your primary navigation system and using logic as a secondary tool for verification. You must feel into intuitive knowing first, and then use reason to implement what intuition shows you, rather than using reason to decide whether to follow intuition. This reversal of hierarchy is crucial. Logic should serve intuition, not the other way around. Your rational mind is excellent at implementing decisions, but it's terrible at deciding the direction. That's where quantum intuition comes in. Here's the practice. Commit to following every clear, intuitive impulse for 1 week, even when logic argues against it. This isn't about acting on reckless impulses or fear-based urges, but rather about trusting the calm, certain knowing that arises within you. When you feel a clear yes or no about something, follow that intuition, even if it doesn't make logical sense. This experiment will demonstrate, through direct experience, that intuition is a reliable guide worth trusting. And it will reveal how reality responds differently when you're in the flow of intuition versus when you rely on logical planning. The challenge isn't receiving intuition. You're already receiving it constantly. The challenge is trusting it enough to act on it, especially when logic says something different, when other people question your choices, or when circumstances don't immediately validate your intuitive guidance. Alignment means being willing to look foolish to logic in order to follow what your consciousness knows at the quantum level. In the comments, write exactly these words. I trust my quantum intuition. I follow my inner knowing over logical analysis. I align with guidance. This declaration sets the intention to make intuition your primary guide and to trust direct knowing rather than always requiring logical verification. It affirms your commitment to act on guidance rather than just acknowledging it intellectually. Write it. I trust my quantum intuition. I follow my inner knowing over logical analysis. I align with guidance. Notice what this commitment activates within you. It's not just about thinking the words, it's about feeling the alignment with something that has been trying to guide you all along. When you start following quantum intuition consistently as your primary guidance system, rather than only following it when logic agrees, reality will reorganize in ways that prove intuition is a far superior navigation tool compared to a logic-only approach. Decision-making will become effortless because you're no longer endlessly analyzing and second-guessing. You'll feel into intuitive knowing to determine which choice aligns with your highest trajectory. Then, use logic only for implementation, not for determining whether to follow intuition. The mental exhaustion that comes from trying to figure everything out logically will dissipate when you recognize that knowing is deeper than thinking and more accurate. Opportunities will appear with perfect timing because intuition will be guiding you to the right place at the right time to take the right action. When you align with your intuition, stress and anxiety decrease dramatically because you'll stop carrying the burden of trying to figure everything out logically. The mental pressure of constant analytical thinking dissolves, and your energy and vitality increase because you're no longer fighting against the intuitive guidance within you. Instead, you're living in harmony with it. The internal conflict between what you know and what you do will cease when you follow your intuition. This shift in alignment will transform your life, leading to smoother manifestation, greater fulfillment, and accelerated personal growth. Perhaps most importantly, you'll develop an unshakable inner authority. You won't rely on external validation or expert opinions to make decisions. Instead, you'll have direct access to knowing through your intuition. This doesn't mean you will disregard others' input. It simply means that others' perspectives will inform your choices rather than determining them. You'll consult your intuition first, then consider external input, rather than seeking permission to trust your own knowing. Quantum intuition isn't something you have, it's something you are. It's a part of you, intrinsic to your very essence, woven into the fabric of your consciousness. You're not a person who receives intuitive guidance from an external source. Your consciousness itself is the source. Intuition, then, isn't something separate from you. It's your consciousness knowing itself directly, without the intermediary of thought, reasoning, or logical processes. When you follow intuition, you're not following an external directive. What you are truly following is your higher dimensional self, your consciousness, which operates at a frequency where outcomes are visible before they manifest in the material world. This understanding reveals a profound truth. The distinction between intuition and logic is not a difference in guidance from two separate sources, but rather a dynamic within consciousness itself. Intuition and logic are both functions of consciousness, yet they serve distinct purposes. Intuition is consciousness recognizing what it already knows. Logic is consciousness pretending it doesn't know, trying to figure things out through reasoning and sequential analysis. The key to this realization is understanding that intuition is not a skill you develop, but rather a natural state of being. It is your consciousness, in its highest form, simply acknowledging its own wisdom. Logic, on the other hand, is an attempt by consciousness to figure things out, often through trial and error, using thought and reason. The paradox here is that when you try to rely on logic too heavily, you block the very intuitive guidance that your consciousness already possesses. It is this very act of overthinking and analyzing that prevents you from accessing the direct knowing that quantum intuition provides. When you recognize that you are intuition, rather than simply having intuition, following your inner guidance becomes effortless. You're not trying to trust something outside of you, you're trusting yourself, your higher quantum consciousness, which inherently knows the truth. Quantum intuition is the language of consciousness knowing itself, without any need for external validation or reasoning. The moment you stop doubting whether you should trust your intuition and instead embrace the understanding that you are this knowing, the path becomes clear and the flow of intuitive guidance becomes more consistent and reliable. Every intuitive impulse you receive is a reflection of your own consciousness, showing you parts of itself that have been obscured by your limited awareness. These intuitive knowings are not coming from an external source, they're simply being revealed by your higher consciousness, which operates at frequencies where information is readily accessible. As you begin to integrate this realization, you'll notice that the doubts that previously clouded your ability to trust intuition will dissolve. The greatest revelation here is that there is no separation between you and the quantum field. There is no separation between your consciousness and universal consciousness. There is no divide between your knowing and the ultimate knowing of the universe. What you call intuition is actually your consciousness accessing information from itself, from the quantum field about itself. The entire process of receiving intuitive guidance is, in essence, consciousness recognizing what it already is and knows. The practice of following intuition is simply the act of aligning with that inherent knowing, recognizing that it is you that is guiding yourself and not an external force providing you with guidance. When you live from the place of consciousness knowing itself, you move away from the constant need to analyze and figure things out. Instead of asking, "What should I do?" when faced with a decision, you begin to drop into consciousness itself and simply recognize what you already know. The knowing is already there beneath the layers of mental processing. It is available before the logical analysis, before reasoning kicks in. Intuition isn't something you develop through effort. It's something you allow to emerge by stopping the constant mental noise that obscures it. When this shift becomes stable within you, something paradoxical happens. You begin to realize that you are both the one receiving intuition and the source of that intuition. You become aware that the guidance you receive is not coming from an outside source, but is a reflection of the consciousness within you. You are simultaneously the one who seeks guidance and the one providing that guidance to yourself. This paradox resolves when you recognize that the receiver and the source of intuition are not two separate entities. They are one unified consciousness, appearing as duality, but ultimately remaining as unity. This realization leads to a profound understanding. Every time you follow intuition, your consciousness is recognizing and acting on its own knowing. Every time you ignore intuition, your consciousness is choosing to forget what it already knows and attempting to figure it out through logic and reasoning. Following intuition is how consciousness stays coherent with itself, how it aligns with its highest trajectory. Ignoring intuition, on the other hand, is how consciousness creates internal division and suffering. When you override your intuition with logic, you are in essence blocking the natural expression of your consciousness. Your life is quantum intuition trying to live itself through your form. The choices you make, the relationships you foster, the paths you take, these are all expressions of consciousness navigating through itself, through you. When you follow intuition, you allow this natural expression to unfold effortlessly. When you resist intuition and rely solely on logic, you block the natural flow of consciousness. This resistance creates tension and obstacles, both internally and externally. The flow is always available to you through intuition, The resistance is always created when logic overrides it. By following quantum intuition, you serve not only your personal journey but also the collective consciousness. You become part of a broader shift toward trusting direct knowing over analytical thinking, demonstrating that intuition-led living produces better outcomes than a purely logical approach. Every time you follow your intuition successfully, you are proving to the collective field that quantum guidance is real and reliable. In doing so, you strengthen the morphic resonance that helps others access intuitive knowing as well. Your experience contributes to a collective shift, making intuitive living more accessible and acceptable to everyone. As more individuals consistently follow their intuition, the collective consciousness shifts from being dominated by logic to being balanced between knowing and thinking. This is a necessary evolution for the collective. Your individual choice to trust your intuition plays a key role in this shift, as it gives others permission to access their own intuitive knowing. That permission is crucial for the next phase of collective consciousness evolution. There is another mysterious aspect to this process. Your intuition doesn't just serve you, it has an impact on the intuition of others as well. Through the phenomenon of quantum entanglement, when you trust your own intuition, you make it easier for others to trust theirs. Consciousness is unified, and what happens in one location ripples through the entire field. You are not just navigating your personal life through intuition, you are modeling intuitive navigation for the collective. This process helps awaken others to the truth that intuition is a real and reliable source of guidance. Sharing your intuition experiences with others can be powerful, but it's important to recognize that not everyone will understand, especially if they are still deeply committed to logic as their primary guide. Those whose intuition is awakening will recognize the truth of what you share and will feel empowered to trust their own knowing. Those whose intuition is dormant may dismiss it as irresponsible or delusional, but that too serves consciousness. Some individuals need to experience logic-based realities before they are ready to accept intuitive knowing, while others will awaken through recognizing the truth in your experience. The role you serve by following your intuition is not to convince skeptics or prove anything to others. Instead, it's about living in such alignment with your own intuitive guidance that you demonstrate to others that it's possible. Your life becomes a living testament to the reality of quantum guidance, showing others that consciousness can navigate through direct knowing, rather than through endless mental calculations and analyses. Your demonstration through living is far more powerful than any verbal explanation could be. In the next video, I will reveal advanced intuition protocols, how to distinguish between different types of intuitive signals, how to receive guidance about timing and implementation, and how to use intuition to navigate complex situations where logic only sees problems. I will show you how to access quantum knowing about people, opportunities, and optimal pathways, enabling you to apply intuition with greater precision and effectiveness. But for now, I invite you to commit to following your intuition. In the comments write, "I am quantum intuition. I trust direct knowing. I follow consciousness guiding itself." This declaration affirms that you are not separate from intuition. You are consciousness, and intuition is consciousness knowing itself. Write it. I am quantum intuition. I trust direct knowing. I follow consciousness guiding itself. Notice the shift. It's not just a thought or belief. It's a recognition that you've always had access to quantum knowing through intuition. You've simply been overriding it with logic for too long. After writing, subscribe immediately. Everything on this channel supports consciousness operating intuitively, not through techniques or practices to develop intuition, but by removing the obstacles that prevent you from recognizing and trusting the quantum knowing you already have access to through your being as consciousness itself. Activate notifications because what's coming next will systematically strengthen your capacity to receive, recognize, and follow quantum intuition in every area of life. This is not a special skill, it's a natural way for consciousness to navigate when it is not dominated by analytical thinking. You've been receiving quantum intuition all along. The guidance has been constant, clear, and accessible. The only question now is, will you finally trust it enough to follow it consistently, rather than only when logic agrees? Everything changes when you make intuition primary and logic secondary. When you trust knowing over thinking, when you follow consciousness guiding itself, rather than trying to figure everything out mentally. The intuition you're receiving right now about the action you need to take, the choice you need to make, the person you need to contact, that's real guidance. It's worth following. Not someday, when you feel more certain, but now. This is the moment to act on the knowing you've been receiving. Quantum intuition is always guiding you toward the optimal timeline. Logic is always second-guessing, doubting, and demanding evidence. Trust the knowing. Follow the guidance. Act on intuition even when it makes no logical sense. Watch what happens when you align with consciousness guiding itself rather than resisting its guidance with analytical thinking. You are quantum intuition. You are consciousness knowing itself. You are guidance appearing as a person receiving guidance, while remaining unified consciousness throughout. Follow accordingly. Everything changes when you do.